Episode 10 of the Coastal Feuds podcast, and Tyler Lombardi has finally returned off of his soccer season. We're super happy to have him back. Once again, I'm your host, Braden Plord. Alongside me, Arjun Pirani, Charlie Van Dyke, and like I just said, Tyler Lombardi. We're just going to dive straight into college football this week. Starting off, another big upset week with Alabama, Ole Miss, BYU, and Colorado all being upset by unranked teams. And this just throws a huge knot into the entire college football playoffs. I mean, Bama got their third loss, so they're really fringe, which is insane to think Alabama not having a chance to go to the playoffs. Ole Miss, they're pretty much done. BYU, Colorado, the Big 12 is just up for grab. I saw a stat that it was 250 different possibilities for the Big 12 championship game. So that's really going to be interesting. And this season's just been a whole roller coaster of a ride.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. If you looked at someone at the beginning of the season and said Colorado has a chance to again the college football playoff and win the Big 12, they would laugh in your face. They were expected to barely become bowl eligible. Nobody expected BYU to be BYU. Nobody expected Indiana to almost go undefeated. Of course, past Saturday they did take a whooping in the shoe from the Buckeyes. Nobody expected any of these storylines. Nobody expected the hustle and bustle and the spontaneous teams and the ups and downs of college football. That's what it is.
Yeah, and I think I want to go back to Brain's point about the Alabama game, just to begin off. That I think Alabama, they look like they're running around with without their heads on. They look really lost out there. And then I guess continuing on Arjun's point, there's been no script this year. There's been no consistency within teams. I think it makes for an overall really fun season. I Oregon's still undefeated, so I feel like was for me that was unexpected. I thought they were going to be bottom 12 team in the playoff at least. And I think there's nothing to really, tie college football down right now. There's nothing's expected, which is, I think that's how we want every season to go.
Charlie, one second. Did you say you thought Oregon was going to be a bottom 12 team in the college football playoff?
Yeah,
What do you
I I didn't think they were going to be able to beat uh I'm blanking on who they beat. Shoot,
Ohio State.
uh, one
Ohio
second, one
State.
second. Sorry.
Ohio State.
That was
Yeah,
like the
I did not think they were going to beat Ohio State. I thought Ohio State was going to be a stronger team.
So you think with one loss they would be on like the fringe?
like was it just like strength of schedule you thought, or was it like
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was going to, they're not play, also okay, well also I thought Washington was going to be a better team, so I thought they were going to lose to Washington in the upcoming games. I thought they were going to be a two-loss at-large team, maybe a two-loss Big Ten champion. If they came back and beat Ohio State or came back and beat someone in the Big Ten championship. I thought the fall off for Michigan and the fall off for Washington was going to be as bad. I thought the fall off for I thought the fall off for Washington definitely was going to be as bad as it is right now. And so I thought they were going to, contest a little bit more with Oregon, but I didn't think. I thought they were more of they weren't like a fringe. I thought they were, but I didn't think they were going to be a guaranteed. They were a bye week team.
Gotcha.
all right? And so I know that the AP poll came out. While it's not the official college football rankings, I know that some of us have interesting opinions on it. Tyler, I remember you were voicing earlier today about your I don't know, disgust of the AP poll. Would you like to go more into that?
Yeah, there's multiple things with the AP poll that I really just don't like. And to start off, it's Alabama, and it's the big name bias that I feel is really killing the sport this year. I have not seen an 8-3 team ranked in the top 15 in my life. I know it's a short life for me, but I mean 8-3 with some their only convincing win is Georgia. There is no real convincing wins. Losses to two different unranked teams, as in Oklahoma and Vanderbilt. Close games versus South Carolina, where they could have easily lost if it wasn't for mistakes. It's just not a convincing team. Jalen Milroe hasn't looked very good so far this year. He had a good game versus Georgia, but he's thrown multiple picks. Against Oklahoma, he had 3 picks that lost them the game. He's shown inconsistency throwing the ball. He's been very strong running it, but I mean, he's got to be a dual threat quarterback. And overall, Alabama is just like not that good of a team this year. And the only reason they're there is because of their name.
Yeah, I feel like that's something you could argue a lot this year. But you could also argue that the SEC is just so deep that maybe an 8-3 Alabama deserves to be there more than, let's say, a 9-2 Arizona State, which is one spot below them, just because of how deep and how competitive the SEC has gotten with the addition of Texas and Oklahoma, right? So you could make that argument, but I do agree that the big name bias is crazy because Iowa State, they were around 3 or 4 weeks ago, they were in the top 10 and they got a huge upset against Kansas and they dropped and they had another loss. I'm blanking on the name, but they've
Texas Tech.
Texas Tech. Thank you, big man. And ever since then, they've slowly been climbing their way up. I think they got as low as 23, 24 as a two-loss team. And I will say the two losses were in the Big 12, which is not as uh, a more strong conference than the SEC. But the bias is definitely there from the committee this year. Also, the fact that SMU is ahead of Indiana. Now, I do understand that Indiana did lose against Ohio State, but if I were to pick Indiana over SMU in a fight, or like in a game, not a fight, rather, I would pick Indiana 10 times out of 10. But the thing that's really bugging me the most is Notre Dame at 5. I'm not sure if you guys have seen this. Notre Dame at 5. I
No.
understand that they won against who's it? Army 49.
Army. Yeah, it's Army.
That
I mean,
exactly. You're going to be running triple option the whole game. Okay, let me just all out blitz you then. It's not that hard of a game plan to run. They lost to Northern Illinois. Nobody's going to forget that. It seems like the committee is starting to forget that, putting them at 5, and over people such as Georgia, who has such a stronger resume. Notre Dame is playing teams in the ACC. They're not playing teams. I know the ACC is not that strong this year, but they're not playing teams in the Big Ten or the SEC, right? So to put them at 5, even though they do have one less loss than Georgia, I just feel like it's blasphemy.
I agree. I think the big name bias this year has been pretty incredible. One big name that I want to point out that I've always been kind of critical of is Colorado. I mean, they're 8-3 right now, and I don't feel like they've put up a win against any team that I can really be like, oh yeah, no, that's a good high quality win. They lost this past week to Kansas in a pretty bad loss. I mean, 21-37 is not a score that you're like, oh, that's that's close enough. That's not exactly what I would say 21-37 is. I think again, this is more Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, Shador Sanders hype over nothing. I'm a little disappointed in the committee that it's still inflicting him this badly, and there hasn't even been that much news about him. Frankly, I think the team has kept their head down. They've worked a little bit harder than they have in the past couple of weeks, and yeah, 8-3 is a great overall record. But at the same time, you're not delivering against teams that like an average team can't deliver against. Like any team, I think like any team that's at least like receiving votes, like Kansas State or Syracuse even could probably deliver against the teams that Colorado was beating. So I think that big name bias is definitely hurting a little bit. But I guess just to go back to Tyler's point about how Alabama should be. What you think they should be ranked lower? You did think not ranked at all? What do you think?
I mean, I don't have an exact number, but the idea that a top 15 team has 3 losses, 2 of them being unranked teams, as well, it's a 24-3 loss, not even scoring a touchdown against Oklahoma. You can't say that that team is top 13 and on the fringe of the college football playoffs. Like, in my opinion, they're pushing top 20. When you're losing twice to unranked teams, it means that you don't have the minerals to compete with the top teams.
Right, and I will agree with that. That probably not putting up a touchdown against an unranked Oklahoma team who's not been stellar as we expected them to be this year. I guess not expected, regardless. I think I have to agree with Arjun's point of the SEC is just such a deep conference with so many great players and so many great teams that overall I think like overall they dropped 6 overall places to again an Oklahoma team that I feel like is just in a very deep and good conference. I feel like that's a respectable number to drop. They're still an overall great team. I still think they should be ranked. Maybe 13 is a little too high, but I understand 8-3 being in the top 20 at least. I think Kalen DeBoer, he's no Nick Saban, but I feel like he's leading them in some sort of right direction. But at the same time, I think you're right. I think 13 might be a little high. I just don't think. I think you're being a little too critical.
Yeah, I just want to add one thing. I saw this on Instagram, and it was the last time Alabama had 3 losses, and it showed some like historic events. Not sure if you guys remember the Gordon Hayward shot in March Madness when he was on Butler. That happened in 2010. It's been 14 years. I was 2 years old, to put that into perspective for the listeners and the viewers out there. And it's kind of a sign that the Saban era has officially ended. People thought that Kalen DeBoer would keep his legacy alive, which you could argue to a point he did, but that standard of Alabama greatness, I feel, is going a little bit downhill after this loss to the Sooners.
I mean, just for me, I feel like this season in college football, I'm not sure you could have found a better season to get as immersed as you've been able to. Because with the past college football playoffs, it's just four teams you kind of knew. I mean, years ago, we knew it was going to be Alabama versus Clemson in the Alabama, Clemson, just all those really dominant teams from a couple years ago. But now, since you have these teams coming out of nowhere, Indiana with oh shoot, I forgot his name. Um, but anyway, just Indiana coming out of nowhere, being so bad the past couple of years, and then coming out 8-1. I mean, you're seeing so many good teams. SMU in a brand new conference, they're a top 10 team. Boise State, Ashton Jeanty came out of absolutely nowhere, and there's just been so much talk about the college football playoffs and all the possibilities. I mean, everything is up for grab. We've never seen the SEC this close in so long. It's always been Alabama, Georgia. That's about it. But now, at one point, we see Texas A&M holding up an SEC lead deep into the season with the Big 12. I mean, it's a four-way tie right now. And if we had the tiebreaker right now, it would be Arizona State and Iowa State in the Big 12 championship. You can't really make this stuff up. And I'm just really appreciating the expanded college football playoff. And I think a lot of people would agree with me. And with the college football playoffs deep into the season, we've already seen some clinches in their conference championships. SMU has booked their ticket to the ACC championship along with Oregon in the Big Ten championship. Georgia, once again, in the SEC championship. That is no surprise. Army and Tulane are going to go off in the American Athletic Conference. Boise State in the Mountain West, and Big 12, like I've touched on earlier, along with the four-way tie and the 250 possibilities, is truly a toss-up. What are you guys expecting for more conference championships, or who do you think will make it to their respective conference championship?
Yeah, I mean, SEC, I do believe it's going to be Texas, Georgia in the SEC championship. People have an argument for Texas A&M, but Aggies are playing the Longhorns this week. I have the Longhorns coming out on top, and that'll give them the edge to secure the SEC championship spot. Big Ten, it's going to be Ohio State Oregon rematch unless unless Ohio State and Indiana both lose, then Penn State would get in, or if Penn State and Ohio State lose, then Indiana would get in, but that's highly unlikely. So I think the Buckeyes will get in. And then ACC, Miami, SMU, pretty straightforward there. Big 12, I do believe it will be Colorado, Arizona State. Book it. I think Coach Prime is going to fire his boys up. I think some chips are going to fall. Things are going to fall into place, and Prime's going to have himself sitting in Dallas for the Big 12 championship game.
See, I agree with you for the most part on all of your choices except for the Big 12 game. And that's because the amount of things that would have to fall into place for Colorado just doesn't look good. Their common matchups with Arizona State have them losing the tiebreaker with a loss to Kansas State, which doesn't help them at all. And BYU doesn't have the hardest game to end on, and BYU also has the tiebreaker as well, as they also beat Kansas State. So it looks like BYU has a really easy route to just take that other spot with the win against Houston. And I'm not sure what Iowa State ends the season with, but it doesn't really look good for Colorado. I have Arizona State versus either BYU or Iowa State. I have BYU. I really like them. I feel like they've played well, 2 losses recently, but they're still a very strong team that lost to good, strong teams as well.
Yeah, I'm agree with you there on that one, Tyler. I think that it's definitely going to come down to between Arizona State, Iowa State, and BYU. I do think it is going to be Iowa State purely because they're coming off of 2 wins, and BYU's coming off of 2 losses right now. One of them being to a good ranked Arizona State team, but another one being to a not very good Kansas team that also recently took down Colorado. But this Iowa State team, I think overall they look really really strong. I mean, granted they just had to edge it out against Utah, but I think. This Iowa State team looks really, really good overall, and I think I just think they're going to be able to out hustle BYU and find their way into a Big 12 championship with Arizona State.
All right, awesome picks. And now that we're going to be taking our own Heisman picks as it comes down to the end of the season, I feel like there's really only two options here, either Travis Hunter or Ashton Jeanty. And we've already talked about both of them before and what great athletes they've been. And for my Heisman pick, I got to choose Ashton Jeanty. Just looking at his stats from this season and going back to past running back Heisman winners, he's surpassed them by so much. I think when Derrick Henry won the Heisman, Jeanty has 10 more touchdowns and like 600 more yards than him. And he's just been insane production. Every single game he's had, he's been insane, always scoring touchdowns, always having a huge impact on his team. Ashton Jeanty is my Heisman winner.
I 100% agree. And Ashton Jeanty has looked amazing all season. And I'll debunk the one biggest criticism. They say he has that cupcake Mountain West schedule. That one game versus Oregon where he put up 200 yards, 3 touchdowns, 7.7 yards per carry. He does it against the good teams too. And that's my biggest criticism for Travis Hunter. You saw him in the K-State game getting 3 catches for 26 yards, and the game against Arizona, 2 catches for 17 yards. He's inconsistent. Yes, he plays both sides of the ball. Yes, he does it at an above average rate, but he doesn't do it at an elite level for both sides of the ball. As well as with Shadur Sanders does force feed him the ball. It seems like this Colorado's team's goal is to get Travis Hunter the Heisman more than they want to win the Big 12 championship.
Yeah, so I would agree with you the guys there. My pick is Ashton Jeanty, but I feel like this comes down to a reincarnation of Charles Woodson and a reincarnation of Barry Sanders. I feel like it is. And when you break it down like that, it's not picture perfect, but I would pick Barry Sanders over Charles Woodson. I'm not sure about you. Tyler, I know you're a Michigan fan. I know you may think otherwise, but Barry Sanders is the best college football running back of all time. And I think that if you were to have your pick on who you'd want on your team or to be the best player in college football right now, Ashton Jeanty is just doing such remarkable things at such a remarkable rate that because of big name bias, he's not the number one like favorite right now for the Heisman. But if he was at a school like Georgia or Tennessee, it would be a lock no matter what.
I definitely agree with you on that one. Arjun, I feel definitely because he's playing at Boise State and playing in the Mountain West Conference, Ashton Jeanty is definitely not like the full consideration for like a clear Heisman candidate winner. I feel like he's playing at one of those Power Five big name schools. He would definitely be a lock. Personally, I think that Ashton Jeanty is the better player. I don't doubt that for a second. I think I like Tyler's point of Colorado. It's like they have Colorado's goal is to win Travis Hunter the Heisman Trophy rather than win him or rather than the team win the Big 12. I think that's 100% an agreeable point. I will have to say, I think if you look at the Boise State offense and you look at the teams that they're playing as well, I feel as Ashton Jeanty is delivering incredible numbers. You cannot deny that. But also at the same time, when a team is able to stop Ashton Jeanty's run game, it has been able to happen in the past. Teams have been limited to him to 100 yards, which is still quite a lot. The Boise State offense still can put up great throwing yards and throwing numbers, which is not exactly a agreeable point for the Colorado team. I feel Travis Hunter, he almost has to carry his team, unlike Ashton Jeanty. Ashton Jeanty has a lot more room to make errors on the Boise State team because there's a stronger team behind him playing in weaker teams. You're not gonna come and tell me that the Big 12 overall is weaker than the Mountain West. I think. I do think Ashton Jeanty is a better player, and he should win the Heisman. I feel like I understand why they picked Travis Hunter, because Travis Hunter is taking one, a harder conference. Two, he definitely has less of a team behind him than Ashton Jeanty does.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that too. But I will like to say, I know you were talking about people shutting down Ashton JT. He's averaging 8 yards a carry, which is gross. That's if you're running the ball on first down and you know you can get an easy 8 yards, you put yourself in a great position because you can take a shot on second down, or you can just pick up the easy first and keep the chains moving, right? I mean, when you have that type of impact player just at your disposal, and I'm not going to say it's a gimme, but 9 times out of 10, he's going to get you those 8 yards or possibly even break one free. That's someone you're going to want. He's the one that will A, get the crowd into the game, and B, just be Mr. Reliable. Sometimes you don't need the flashy hit or miss in Travis Hunter. Sometimes you just need your old reliable, right? You need your glue guy. You need the guy that everybody loves. Fans love him. You got an atmosphere. Uh you have your whole scheme around him, and he always shows up. And I think that's just what Ashton JT embodies.
And
I
one
100%
more.
agree. Sorry, Tyler. I think I just want to point this out. I 100% agree. I think Ashton GT is 100% all reliable. But when he played UNLV, he put up 128 yards, which is great. But he put it up within 33 carries, and he put in a touchdown. Meanwhile, the quarterback for Boise State, Madsen, he had 209 yards and a touchdown on only 18 completions. Like, again, I feel that there's a much stronger Boise State throwing than people are giving them credit for, and they're also again playing weaker teams against UNLV. I'm referencing this game, the UNLV game, and UNLV is probably the strongest team Boise State is going to play with in their conference. I think that there is a reasonable understanding that UNLV had the ability to shut down Ashton GT, holding him to 3 yards a carry. That was the average for the day. Which isn't necessarily bad for a running back. I feel like definitely college football with, linebackers getting bigger every single day, it's harder to get every single yard. But at the same time, 3 yards is definitely just not enough to be averaging if you're going to win a game against a Power 5 team. While Ashton GT is a better player than Travis Hunter, I do think that there is a stronger team behind Ashton GT that doesn't have to play against better teams like Colorado does, which is why I could see why Travis Hunter would win. I still think Ashton GT should win because he is by far, clearly the better player.
Well, what I was going to say was the idea what you were saying against UNLV, where Boise State was able to get their passing offense going and how they have this strong team. It's due to the fact that teams are game planning strictly for Ashton Jeanty, and the rest of the team is able to succeed off of that. Ashton Jeanty still averages 4 yards per carry when there's 9 players in the box. When there are 2 players outside of the box, Ashton Jeanty still averages 4 yards per carry. Ashton Jeanty after contact, which is just a pure determination of skill, is over 1,000 yards in the season, higher than some starting running backs on teams. When an entire team is just setting up to stop one player and they still can't do it efficiently, it shows to the talent of the player and the just how at what high of a level he's actually playing at, that a whole team's game plan cannot prevent him from getting into the end zone.
Right, but I want to point that out that Boise State did get into the end zone against UNLV with throwing. Right, so they had 9 players, and They Ashton Jeanty, he ran in, he ran for a touchdown. I'll have him that, but he only had he averaged 3 yards on he averaged 3 yards on 33 carries. I'm saying that you're saying that if you put 9 people in the box and you cover and you're trying to stop Ashton Jeanty and you're developing your whole game plan around him, then why are we? If you're developing your whole game plan around Ashton Jeanty, of course
Why are
that
you
team's going to
arguing
do
with
it.
him? He's agreeing with you.
Yeah.
No, he's not.
Yes, he is. He's okay. When you have 9 players in the box, that means you have 9 players within like a 5x5 area
Right.
on the offensive line.
Right.
That's a good
Right.
thing.
So Boise State's just going to start throwing to.
It's easier for their quarterback to throw the ball. It's easier for them to get that
Yeah,
passing
but I'm
game going.
saying Travis Hunter doesn't have a running back that Colorado can rely on to in the same way that Ashton GT has a receiving core and a quarterback that he can rely on.
Charlie, can I give you an analogy really quick? You
Sure,
live in the Bay Area, correct?
I do.
You're familiar with Stephen Curry.
Yes,
Okay,
I'm quite
right?
familiar with
So
Stephen
when he
Curry.
brings
Yeah.
the ball up the court and he gets triple teamed and leaves Jonathan Kuminga in the corner and he kicks it out, sure, he's not an all-star caliber player. He could be. I'm just gonna put that out there. And he drains a three. So what? A role player can do that. That's their job. They are still a high-level athlete. People
Exactly.
at Boise State are high-level athletes. Former five-star who went to USC, Malachi Nelson, is the backup at Boise State. That's how deep their roster is, and that's how much talent Boise State has. It's in the Mountain West Conference, and it doesn't get as much respect as it deserves. But there are still high-caliber athletes, and Ashton Jeanty is just a different breed that it takes so much energy out of the defense and focus that those other high-level athletes are then able to succeed off of him.
Right, but I'm saying that because the defense is only focusing on Ashton Jeanty, they can't focus on the other team, and that just kind of lets them run by and score. I'm not saying that they're not good players. I'm saying that it's just Ashton Jeanty taking away the attention. I'm saying Ashton Jeanty can rely on his throwing core. Not I'm saying they're good. I'm saying Ashton Jeanty can rely on his throwing and receiving core, while Travis Hunter can't, and that's why they kind of force feed him the ball, like Tyler said.
I think you guys are arguing over an agreement, which is kind of really weird. You both, okay, we all agree Ashton Jeanty's the Heisman. Ashton Jeanty is opening up opportunities for Boise State players who are still really good athletes because they're playing at a Division I college football level, like Colorado athletes. But Travis Hunter doesn't open those opportunities up like Ashton Jeanty does for Boise State. Are we done?
Yes, we
Yeah.
are.
Okay, awesome. So definitely not an interesting week in NFL. Really, Chiefs and Vikings, they both escaped upsets, and that was really about it. But men's basketball, college men's basketball is starting to heat up with the Maui Invitational starting tomorrow. First games are Memphis at UConn. And then I think these are, I don't believe I think they might be all on the same day, but Memphis versus UConn, Colorado versus Michigan State, Auburn versus Iowa State, Dayton versus North Carolina. We're just going to go around the table, do some game picks. Arjun, who do you want? Memphis versus UConn.
Give me UConn. What type of question is that? They just got Liam McNeely, absolute stud from Montverde. He's a knockdown shooter, right? Give me. What type of question is this? Give me UConn next. Oh my god.
Yeah, that's not a good question, Brandon. I'm sorry, UConn. What?
Yeah,
Like, I love Memphis. I think
have
Memphis
to
is a
choose
great
the
team. They're a
Memphis.
tournament team, 100%. But
Yeah,
but
no
but UConn.
disrespect to
What?
Penny Hardaway, man. I love you.
Yes,
My God.
yes.
But
Yeah,
my God,
UConn.
dude. Y'all are getting wiped.
Okay, I get it's unanimous UConn picks. But now Colorado versus Michigan State. Who do you want, Arjun?
You see, I know Michigan State has the legacy, right? And I'm not as familiar with college basketball as I am with college football. But I know that historically, Michigan State is a very, very good program. But in
Draymond
recent
Green.
years, they haven't been living up to par. So because of that, I'm going to go with Colorado.
Tyler?
I'm just gonna go with Michigan State. They have a good, talented team that can compete for the Big Ten if needed. They're 4-1 to start the year. Maybe like you don't want that loss, but I mean it is to Kansas, and it was a good performance against Kansas. It's a good team. They have the talent. I think they'll honestly smoke Colorado here.
I'm not gonna call it a smoke. In fact, I'm gonna call just because Colorado. I feel like they overall just in the past they just had such a deep roster that's able to compete at an incredibly high level, even kind of like no names. I'm thinking, the De Silva brothers. I believe two of the three went to Colorado. Harrison Carrington. He's a great point guard from my high school actually. I feel like he provides a lot, and then I feel like the overall just deep rosters on both sides. But I feel like Colorado's just going to beat them out.
Yeah, I also I kind of I like Michigan State in this game. Like I said, I forgot the name of the Michigan State head coach, but he's been there for a really long time. Really experienced guy. He knows these types of games, these type of tournaments. I think he's going to
Tom
put
Izzo.
Tom Izzo. He's going to put his team in a good place to go and win. But now the most close matchup: Auburn, Iowa State.
I'm going to go with Auburn here. I have faith in Auburn's program and their basketball team as a whole. I think that the freshman Ja'Kai Howard, even though he probably won't get minutes, I did really like him coming out because he did have Penn State in the top 10. And I was really pulling that he would come over to State College. But I'm still rooting for him. I liked his film coming out of high school. I saw a whole lot of clips of him. He's got a crazy bag. He has crazy moves, and I just think he's going to elevate the Tigers to the next round.
As long as he's not fighting, though, you
That
need to
would
make
be
sure
true.
you need to make sure that there's no fights on that Auburn team. But I also have Auburn really top tier roster. They had a great start to the season, huge win against Houston, I believe. It was just overall a great start. I just got Auburn.
I mean, yeah, I think I'm gonna base my opinions exactly on Tyler's right there. Yeah, huge win against Houston. Overall deep roster, deep strong roster. Not a whole lot else to talk about. Yeah, give me Auburn, War Eagle.
Going the hometown kid. Come on, give me Iowa State. Taman Lipsey's going to ball out. Okay, now really quickly, Dayton versus North Carolina. I have North Carolina.
Yeah, I have North Carolina too. I think RJ Davis is a stud, so I'll take the Tar Heels.
As well for me.
I hate unanimity. So give me the Flyers. Let's go Dayton.
You've got to be smoking. You've gotta be smoking.
100%. I have zero confidence in that pick, but give me the Flyers.
All right,